AYN Thor has been out for about 7 months or so now. It's this cool little device right here. At least for those that were in that first shipment or those that had it for review before it came out. It's fair to say the AYN Thor has taken the world by storm. It has smashed through our little retro handheld niche community to mainstream audiences in a way that no other retro handheld really has. And you have sites like IGN reviewing the AYN Thor, and you have Giant Bomb checking it out, and you have so many different parts of the world that are jumping in on the AYN Thor. It really is no wonder that they're on batch 5 pre-orders now, as of this video, and they have literally sold thousands of these things at this point. AYN has done awesome, and I personally love the Thor as much as the next person. For those that maybe have been living under a rock and you don't know what this is, the AYN Thor is an Android-based dual-screen handheld. Both screens are OLED. The top is 120 Hz, the bottom is 60 Hz that can act as 120 Hz. It is powered by a powerful Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor, which means things like PC emulation is on the menu. And it's just a gorgeous device all around, along with being the first actually good and complete dual screen Android handheld. It's even more gorgeous if you get the white one, because it's the best one out of all of them. It's so good. But what would an AYN Thor 2 look like? Or maybe an AYN Thor XL, which we'll talk a little bit about later. That's what I find myself thinking about when it comes to the AYN Thor. And look, I love the Thor. Honestly, as is, I think this is the best that they could have done at the current time. But if we start to look at, now that the Thor has been in hands for 7 months or so, what is the next version going to look like? What could they do upgrade-wise on the Thor to make it even better? And I don't think we're anywhere near having this happen. Like, it's only been 7 months, probably at least a year or more until we see an AYN Thor 2. But what does that look like? And so let's start brainstorming. Let's go with the outer design and shell first. One thing that can be improved upon is the ergonomics of it as a whole, and making it less blocky. Look, ergonomics, no matter what, is going to be a negative with a clamshell, I think, but we can do some improvements. Here is the first Retroid Pocket Flip as a comparison, and you can see how curved all of the corners are in comparison. And even when you open it up, the bottom part contours nicely to your hands, which obviously curve by nature. Your hands are not L-shaped, they curve. The Thor, however, is a lot more blocky, and you have your hands in that weird L shape instead, especially with smaller hands. Now, I've gotten used to it over time, but I would be lying if I said that this is really what I wanted. I would love to see improvements. And while we're on the subject of blocky, the triggers absolutely need to be curved on the next one. The perfect example here, once again, is the Retroid Pocket Flip. The triggers on it are curved, along with the curved nature of the design, and it's perfect that way. And I talked about this in my review for the Thor, so we're not going to make it a big thing here, but the Thor really shouldn't have blocky triggers to go along with the blocky nature of it. If they could curve the Thor 2 to make it more ergonomic, then the triggers should curve with it. Honestly, just copy the Retroid Pocket Flip's design here. They did it perfectly. So there's no need to reinvent the wheel, just do this, but in your way. Still on the outside here, and the next has to be the hinge. There is 2 things with the hinge, and I hesitate to say issues, so I didn't, because they're not, but improvements could be made on the hinge as well. The first is the hinge is wobbly. If you push on one side, it can wobble. I don't normally ever do this in games, and I only really remembered it when I came up with ideas of how to make the Thor 2, but it is an issue, and it should just be sturdy. But the hinge should also be able to open to any degree and stay there. It really should. Right now, you can do wide open, normal open, and then a bit more than 90 degrees open. And then you can kind of do varying levels of close, but nobody is ever playing it in these levels. I would love to see a hinge that just sticks to wherever you put it. GPD has done this with the GPD Win Mini for many years now, so the technology is there. They just need to put it in the actual Thor 2. Now, I don't personally have this issue because I use the TPU shell, which I find to be a massive improvement and a necessity. But I have seen complaints that people hit the power button, which is on the bottom, very often while they're playing. And so, as the last outside sort of change, I guess that should be moved somewhere else so that people don't hit it. Again, not something I have an issue with, but people have it, so it should be moved. Let's open it up and we'll talk about the inside now. I have no idea if this is a hot take or not, but I really have no issues at all with the controls on the inside. Obviously, I would love for them to be more offset, but I also don't want the Thor to be any bigger than it actually is right now. I think the sticks are great, the D-pad is great, and the buttons are great. I've had no issues playing so many games on my AYN Thor these last 7 months, and I think the start, select, home, and back buttons are in the right spots. No need to change any of that. I think a pie-in-the-sky dream, though, would be offering the option for those that want it of a D-pad top, stick bottom layout. In a modular way maybe, or just a second SKU. But I would personally still pick stick top every single time for me personally, and so I don't know how much of this is actually needed. I'm just trying to brainstorm some ideas. Long story short on the controls, besides the triggers on the outside, I don't actually think anything else needs to change. Just my opinion. Now let's talk specs here, since that's about it for the actual outside and inside. As a reminder, here is the AYN Thor's specs. I don't think that there's many of you out there that would be unhappy with any of this. I think AYN did a very good job on this first generation Thor. But once again, we are dreaming of a Thor 2, so there's going to be things that need a bump. The first is the processor. I'm going to imagine that the Thor 2 is going to have a Snapdragon 8 Elite, or maybe an 8 Elite Gen 5, or whatever's better at that time. It's probably one of those two if I had to guess though. But this is fairly obvious. A new Thor is going to have a new processor, obviously. And this only really matters for like Switch emulation, PC emulation. We'll see how far PS3 emulation gets and Xbox emulation gets and all of that. But for retro stuff, I mean, none of this really matters for any of that. But again, Thor 2, you need a processor upgrade. I think the RAM options of 8GB, 12GB, and 16GB are still more than fine. They could do a crazy person tier of 24GB, maybe, for those that have infinite money, but that's all fine. Storage definitely needs a bump. 256 should be the lowest available option. 128 shouldn't be a thing anymore, especially as we go on to 2027, 2028, and all of that. And then a 512 and 1TB option to match the RAM options. Personal preference here, I just think that 128 is a little bit limiting in 2026, and so we could just move on from that. I think the fan definitely needs an upgrade if we're going to start seeing more powerful chips. People are already using the Thor and Odin 3s as mini Steam Decks, despite the fact that they aren't, and so a better and more powerful chip is only going to make that even more of a thing. Android handheld developers are going to have to start using PC handheld type fans and cooling to deal with all of this, if that's the route that we're going to go down. And so I think for a new Thor 2, you're going to need a better fan, both from a noise perspective as well as a cooling perspective, because whatever they did with the Odin 3 is not it. And so this is the one main thing that I think AYN has to go back to the drawing board on, is a much better fan for whatever their next device is, even if it isn't a Thor 2. Battery should definitely get a bump to 8,000 milliamp hours. That would be my hope, personally. I have no issues with the 6,000 milliamp hour battery on the Thor, but again, we are dreaming here. I wouldn't be mad if they did 6,000 once again, especially if the new processor is more efficient, but 8,000 would be nice because you want improvements, of course. Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.3 are absolutely perfect. There's no changes needed here. USB 3.1 Type-C and headphone jack with an SD card slot are all perfect as well. And maybe just add a second USB-C slot. Not super necessary, but hey, if we're doing pie in the sky, then why not? And that leaves us with the biggest thing at the end here, and it's the screens. As a reminder, the top is a 6-inch 1920 by 1080, 120 Hz, 650 nits OLED display. The bottom is a 3.92-inch 1240 by 1080, 60 Hz, 550 nits OLED display. I gotta be honest, I don't know what I would want out of new screens or even that I would want new screens. The only real change that I want to see is proper 120 Hz on the bottom screen. For those that don't know, the top screen is 120 Hz, but the bottom is 60 Hz. To be able to use 120 Hz on the top without turning off the bottom screen, AYN had to hack up a way to essentially overclock the bottom screen to 120 Hz, which introduces screen tearing and waviness in games. But since I personally only really use the bottom screen for guides as well as stationary images and a lot of DS and 3DS games that use that second screen, it's been a decent compromise. Like, I love that they did this. I would be very angry if they didn't do this. So this for me has been a perfect compromise because of the massive benefits to 120 Hz gaming, which is input latency and lag, which you absolutely want. So yeah, obviously for a next iteration, the bottom screen needs to be 120 Hz, proper 120 Hz. As for size and resolution, I really don't see a reason that we would need or could even get to a 1440p type screen on the top. I think 1080p is still fine, and I don't think that's an issue. I think 6 inches and OLED, once again, would be more than fine. Now, the second panel, the bottom screen, is a lot tougher. I think ideally, I would want a 4-inch 4x3 screen, and for measuring a 4-inch 4x3 screen, it should only be 0.25 inches wider than the current Thor screen. Same height. I think I would sacrifice making the Thor a little bit wider to incorporate a 4-inch 4x3 screen, but I don't personally have much issues with the current bottom screen either, as is. I just think a 4-inch 4x3 would be better. And of course, it has to be 120 Hz if you're going to do it. I think it's an absolute testament to the Thor that a lot of these changes, a lot of these things sound like little nitpicky, small little upgrades, because that's really all there is. They did a fantastic job on the first iteration of the Thor, and so it's fun to just brainstorm what you might want in a Thor 2. And none of these are really big sweeping changes either. Like, it's not massive changes. They really nailed the Thor. But there is a world where maybe they do a Thor XL, a Thor Portal, whatever you want to call it. And that could actually be interesting. Something like the AYN Odin 2 Portal's screen up on top, a larger 4x3 OLED screen on the bottom, and making it like a GPD Win Mini size, or maybe a little bit smaller than that. I don't really know how they would compare size-wise. I don't have my Win Mini anymore. I think there's a huge market for that as well, for people that want a bigger device. And I don't know where I personally stand there. I love the small portable nature of the AYN Thor, but I would love to see them cook up a bigger Thor as well, just so I can check it out. I don't know what I would land on, but it would be a fun thought exercise to see what does a bigger Thor look like and how good would that be? Anyways, this was just a fun little brainstorming video that I thought of, and so don't take anything in this video seriously. These are all just my thoughts and my opinions. I'm sure you have different ones, and so let me know in the comments below what you think. What are your upgrades, potential changes, things like that you would love to see in a Thor or a Thor 2 or a Thor XL, if they ever did one. And maybe we can brainstorm ideas, and maybe AYN can look at them and get some ideas too. I don't know. But again, none of this is serious. This is all just for fun. Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow. Come join me on the Discord to talk all about retro gaming, and hope you all have a good one.